Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. We thank GoFan and VNN, the exclusive sponsors of the UIAAA Connection. Now operating as one combined company, GoFan and VNN offer a seamless experience through digital ticketing and athletic websites. They make it easy to direct fans to one central place for schedules, communication, and tickets for both home and away events. We appreciate GoFan and VNN for their continued support and exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch-Hunter. Today we have our special guest, Cory Aadland, the Activities and Athletic Director at the Mitchell School District in South Dakota. Welcome to the podcast, Cory.
Hey, thanks, Hutch. Appreciate having me on.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
Yeah, so grew up in a small town in northeast South Dakota, Veblen. Really small town, about 300 people. Graduated with 9 in my class. So when you're in a small school like that, you do everything. So in order for things to happen, you have to be out for everything. You have to be involved in everything. So it was football, it was basketball, it was track, it was golf. But then, everything else from student council to yearbook to the one act play to all those type of things as well. So band, chorus, you name it, I was in it. So and then went to college at Minnesota State University Moorhead up in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Played football up there and graduated with a computer information systems and management degree. So kind of took a little bit of a non-traditional path to this type of position. That's not necessarily what you think of as AD, as a computer information systems guy. But my first job was at a software company here in town in Mitchell, and really was at that point where you graduate college and you have a hard time getting a job because you don't have any experience, and you can't get experience because you can't get a job. So kind of took it as an opportunity to get some experience and planned on being here for a year and then moving on to something different. And here over 20 years later, I'm still in Mitchell and really enjoy the community and really kind of set roots down in here. So but graduated high school in 2000, so it was a big computer push, kind of that late 90s time frame. So that's kind of what led me into the computer field. And then after working in computer programming for about 5 years, realized that maybe wasn't quite what I wanted to do. wasn't really the path that I wanted to do. And at that time was fortunate to get a job as the associate AD at Dakota Western University, which is a small NIAAA school here in town. And that really changed the trajectory of my professional career path. And I think I spent 2 years there, got out of that for 4 years and did some private sector work. During that time, spent 2 years on our school board. And then following that, was fortunate to get the AD job here. And I think one of the harshest things we do to our kids as being a 18-year-old kid is to say, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? So I think if I could go back to 18-year-old self, maybe I'd do something that might be maybe more directly on the path to this position, kind of your standard teacher, coach type of role. But at the same time, I think it's provided me with some unique experiences and background and perspective that I certainly lean on in different parts of the job. So certainly it's worked out and really fortunate and feel blessed to be here.
Allow me to ask you a follow-up. So you said you went to Minnesota State Moorhead, played football there. What was the name of the league that you played in?
Yeah, we were in the Northern Sun. The Northern Sun.
Okay, so then my question is, I'm pretty sure that you must have played Wayne State out of Nebraska.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, covered from Wayne over to into Nebraska, a lot of Minnesota schools, into Iowa a little bit. So I remember we hit a field goal with about 7 seconds left to win a game down there. My sophomore, junior year, something like that. So yep, spent some time in Wayne.
Now, the reason I ask is my son-in-law, was just named the head coach at Weber State University, left for Wayne, I want to say in 2000. So I think he played at Wayne State 2000 maybe to 2003.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Quarterback at start. Well, then he got concussed, and so then he played receiver after that.
Yeah. We would have been there then.
You may be the only guest that I've had that played in the same conference as my son-in-law. So
Right
there
on.
you
Yeah.
go.
Awesome. That's cool.
Let me ask you this. In a small town in South Dakota, talk about the, particularly in the summer, the youth sports opportunities that you would have had, or did you have to go to other towns? How did that work?
Yeah. That was the era of, you, and like I said, small town is you played whatever was in season. There wasn't, um, you know, whatever the season was the sport you played, and when that was done, you moved on to the next one. And definitely did some additional workouts and some of that kind of stuff, in the summer. But it was playing whatever was in season, and had some. I looked at doing some out of, some out of town type things, and but we were, from a distance standpoint, we were a geography standpoint, we were pretty far removed from really a lot of those things, and didn't necessarily have the means or the time to be able to do some of those things. So it was just, you did what was going on in town, and that was, you just moved from one thing to another.
Your town in South Dakota, then, for someone who may not have been to South Dakota, even though I've been there, your town is, what's the closest major city it's to?
So it's way up in the northeast part of the state. We're about 4 miles from the North Dakota border and about 30 from the Minnesota border. So it's tucked up there in the Glacial Lakes region, which is pretty beautiful country up there. But it's, Aberdeen, Watertown, Fargo, kind of an hour and a half in between all three of those. So we're tucked
Okay.
up there, and some people would call it, we'd call it God's country, but you call it what you want.
I'm with you. Let me ask you for a moment, Cory, to share with our listeners some of the mentors and leaders that you've had in your life that have made a difference to you.
Yeah, certainly my parents. That's probably a common one, I suppose. Just how they've gone about life, and dealt with things that have come at them with adversity and those type of things. Really taught me a lot. My grandpa, on my mom's side, was in education, and was actually a principal in the district that I'm in now. We lost him to Parkinson's about 20 years ago, and I'm the oldest grandkid on that side, so I'm one of the fortunate ones in our family from my cousins that really got to know him, and knew him kind of before that disease kind of really limited some of that. So to be able to see, for him to be able to see kind of where I've come, and a little bit of the footsteps that I followed of his, is something that I would really like to see. But and then when you get into the AD world, and in South Dakota, it was when I first started. Again, didn't have any background, didn't really know what this job meant. Thought I did, and thought I'd officiated basketball and football for about 10 years. I'd been pretty involved with athletics, even when I lived in town here, but thought I knew what the job was until you sit down and realize how little of what the outside world really sees. So I had a lot of people I needed to lean on early. I had a lot to learn. So guys like Terry Roeder was a guy that I really leaned on. Randy Marceau, Jim Brownell are some of the names that were in our conference that were guys that really leaned on. And then I started getting involved in, NIAAA things, and tried to just kind of jump at all those opportunities. And, Becky Moran was somebody that was really influential for me early on. And that was back Becky Moran, the AD in Illinois, not the,
Yeah.
since she's changed. She was really influential early on. Trevor Wilson, one of your Utah guys, was really influential in some of the mentor cohorts that I had went through. And then, just guys across the country, Dan Talbot, Daryl Nance, Mike Elson, and then it moved into guys like Don Bales, Ed Lockwood, Sherry Stice, all those type of people that I just watched from afar. So, and kind of continuing on now, it might not be a mentor in the traditional sense of the word, but people that I've been fortunate enough to to develop relationships and work with, and have kind of built this national network of people that I can lean on. Dustin Smith, Josh Matthews, Tal Gropp, Phil Risen, Damian Fresnelli. I mean, all those, Darren Coe, Brittany Spencer Grant, just all these great people across the country that might not be necessarily mentors in this, and like I said, that traditional sense, but those are all the people that I kind of, and then there's a long list of others, of course, too. But people that I really respect and try to emulate and steal things for how they do certain things, and kind of had influence on me and how I try to go about my my day to day.
That's a great list of leaders. Thanks so much for sharing. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Cory. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Yep, there's been a lot of them. So there's all kinds to choose from, but probably the biggest one is pretty easy for me, and it would go back to really probably my first number of years as an AD, and it's I don't know when this maybe changed, but probably that first 3-4 years. I mentioned before, I didn't have a background, didn't really know what to expect necessarily. When I took the job, and when I took the job, my oldest daughter was 2. Our youngest at the time, our son was 3 months old. So we've added another one since then. But my approach at that time was I went all in, and I felt like I had to be there. I had to be at everything, to try to learn what was going on, and in doing so, I severely neglected my family, to the point that my younger 2 for a number of years wouldn't let me put them to bed. It had to be mom. And it was kind of a hard reaction to realize, my older one was fine, but it was the younger 2 that I was gone for those early years. So that was kind of a tough realization to realize that you've been gone so much at night that it got to that point. So try to work since then, work better to improve this misnomer of work-life balance, that really doesn't exist necessarily, but try to find ways to be more present. And that's come with some challenges. I think part of the problem is that I set a really high expectation among my coaches and my parents, my community here, that that I'll be at everything, and trying to take a step back from that, has been difficult just in the expectation standpoint. But through conversations and time, I've gotten that to a better place. Still some work to do there, but yeah, when you talk about failures, my first ADs my first years of an AD as a dad and a husband, easily the biggest failure that I've had.
Some great insight. Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you this, Cory. The job of athletic administrator, how has it changed, or how is it the same since you first started?
I think it really comes down to, I think we've created those really high expectations of how we operate. I think in a lot of cases we're expected to operate like a small college. And there's a lot of things that people think that we should be doing, everything from streaming and social media, and there's always more. We're always expected to do the next thing and continue to improve and offer more things. But the reality is that we're doing that with a fraction of the staff that a college has, and I know that because I spent 2 years at a college. So if I look at the resources that I have compared to what a small college has, we're doing the job of 8 to 10 people probably, and we're doing it with 2, with myself and my secretary. So I just think the expectation level of how we're expected to operate as a high school is really, really high, and I'm not opposed to high expectations, and I want to continue to do things better. And But it feels like the expectations has gotten really high to a point that it's really difficult to manage on the resources that we've got.
Great answer. Let me ask you a little bit of an off the wall question that I don't normally ask my guests. You live in Mitchell, South Dakota, home of the famous Corn Palace. I've been to South Dakota a couple times, but never to Mitchell. How are this? Well, the summer, so tourist season. Is that a help to your school district money wise, or is it just you just see so many people? I mean, I'm just interested because I don't have that here.
I think it's definitely a big tourist draw. Certainly in the summer months, we'll get tourists through there, all year long. But a lot of people obviously on their way to or from the Black Hills, is kind of where we catch people. It's not necessarily a destination site, but certainly a place that is it's a really unique building and really unique kind of a landscape monument in South Dakota and the world's only. If you haven't heard that, we always talk about the world's only corn palace. So so I don't know about there's probably some financial impact when you start talking about tax revenues and some of those things, but I don't know that it's got a huge impact on our school district, but certainly an iconic place, certainly in South Dakota, and yeah, you go down there in the middle of the summer and there's people all over, and definitely creates a touristy atmosphere and feel to downtown Mitchell.
Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. Now, let me preface this next question. When I asked you earlier about some mentors, you obviously listed the who's who of the NIAAA. And so, having said that, I want you to share with our audience the opportunity you had to create one of the new videos that are going to be rolled out in the rewrite of 790 this December.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate and honored and blessed to have that opportunity. I don't know how many people had to say no before it got to me, but regardless of how it happened, I'm thankful for it. So, in my entire STI AAA, NIAAA journey has just been about giving back to those organizations. They were, again, when I started, not having much of a background, I had a lot to learn, and both of those organizations have given me so much. Been really instrumental in my development, not only as an AD but as a person and as a leader. So any opportunity that I have to give back to those groups is something that I'll continue to do for as long as I possibly can. When I started, I was really about jumping in and doing whatever I could that was available. So it was signing up for cohorts, it was taking classes, it was really kind of whatever I could do. And Josh Scott said it maybe more eloquently than I did, but my thought process and what he has framed it as is sign up and show up. And that's really what I did, and it's really led me to some really incredible opportunities that never thought that I'd have the opportunity to. So to have some kind of involvement and fingerprint on any of these type of things that have a really wide audience, when you start talking national, international type audience and impact, is something that I'm very aware of and very humble and really appreciative of.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. You mentioned Josh Scott, so allow me a follow-up that has nothing to do with our interview. Has he recruited you into the Section 5 Mafia?
Well, I don't know that you can't talk about the Section 5 Mafia.
Yeah.
That's rule one, right? And I don't think you can't say no to that question when you do get recruited, right? So now we've got great people in Section 5. We're as everybody is, we're really proud of our section. And when you start looking at some of the the people that have come through Section 5, it is a who's who of people, and the impact that they've had on the organization over the history of it is pretty incredible. And fortunate that I have relationships and know a lot of those people that have had that impact on us, on that organization.
Well said. Let me ask you this. Now, you have the unique opportunity to serve on the NIAAA board. I believe the last person from South Dakota to serve was probably Steve Berseth. That's how
Yes.
long it's been. Um, and so I want you to talk about what that means. And I ask this of board members and former board members, I being one myself, but I don't think you can describe it to people. But I think unless you've been in that room, it's a hard thing to describe. So talk about that great opportunity to serve on the board and maybe share a couple of stories that you might have.
Yeah, and you're right. It is one of those things you have to feel and experience to truly get kind of the weight of it and the opportunity. But yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity of a lifetime, really. It's the best professional experience that I've had. I think it's probably the best professional experience I will ever have. And I think for me, I really recognize the opportunity that I have. Fortunate that I came through in my career at a time that I was given the opportunity, that that the rotation came to South Dakota when I was kind of in this time. If it comes through, a rotation or two earlier, I'm not prepared. I'm not at a point in my career that I'm qualified or even able to really provide anything. And if you catch it at the wrong time of your career, it might be too late in it. So for it to come through and this be, presented to me, as I'm very aware of it. I'm very fortunate and really, really humble. Because I think of some of the people that, and there's a laundry list of these type of people, but the people that we have in our country, in our organization, Hall of Fame type people, that will never have that opportunity. The two people that really immediately come to mind for me, that have had a big impact on me, are Joey Stuwe and Mike Ellison. Those kind of people those are NIAAA Hall of Famers, that don't get the opportunity that I have to sit in that boardroom. So, not something I take lightly. I'm very aware of that. It's fun to go into those meetings and kind of have that thought and experience of what I'm getting to do that other people, don't get that opportunity to. And as far as the experience, it's really incredible to have a more in-depth look at the operations and really kind of how vast our organization is. I feel like I was pretty well exposed to a lot of things going into this, just based on some other past experience. I serve as our professional development coordinator and cohort stuff. I've done a lot of things, so I've been exposed to it, but to see everything is really cool, just to get a better understanding of how things go. And as far as stories, I mean, it's just to get to do it with the people and the leaders from across the country. Like, the board is just full of great people, great leaders. I mean, it's the best of the best people. Getting to work with the NIAAA staff. They're The realization that our organization runs with a staff of 8 to 10 full-time people is really incredible. That group, if you've been exposed to it and see how they do the work that they do, it's pretty incredible. So they do great work, but also it's not so much about what they're doing, and it's how they go about doing it. They're really passionate about a field that is so important to all of us that are really in the front lines. But yeah, it's a really unique bond that gets developed really, really quickly. I think of my first board meeting was in at the end of the conference in Austin, and I was forewarned ahead of time that it's going to be a really emotional meeting, because you've got 3 or 4 people rolling off those boards, and that's going to be their last time once around the table, and to be able to kind of express their impact on that. So I was warned that it was going to be emotional, and I was still taken back, even knowing that what was coming. It hit even harder than what I was even preparing for. So, and it shows that reverence that the people on that board have for the board and the position and that experience. So, for me, as just coming on eyes wide open, not, it was it was a really cool experience to get to understand the depth and the importance of what this experience and position means. And we kind of we deal with all the because we get so close. We kind of we deal with all of life's ups and downs together. We've got a group text going, and we're sharing things, what's going on with each other's lives, and you get to celebrate the joys that everyone's having together, and be there to support everybody, and in some moments of sorrow and struggles and those things. So, just the the depth of the relationship that builds really quick is really unique and really fun to be a part of.
Some great insight. Thank you so much for sharing. Let me ask you about the opportunity to serve with South Dakota legends. At least for me, they're legends, because I don't know that many people from South Dakota, but I'm talking about Jim Dorman, Bill Clements, who I served with on the awards committee, Joey Stuwe, you mentioned, the late Steve Berseth. Just talk about, I mean, that right there is pretty much the Mount Rushmore of South Dakota. So talk about the opportunity to serve with these giants.
Yeah, you're right. It's humbling and intimidating when you start thinking of the impact and how big those people are, those guys. And I think back to my first state AD conference. I didn't even at the time really even know of the state AD association, the SDI AAA. All my exposure up to that point had really been through the state high school association. So that alone was just kind of a realization that there was this AD association to support and the offerings and those things. So I I just started taking in everything that I could. I remember going to the conference and seeing those guys kind of running everything and just thinking, wow, like those are those are some dudes right there. And really, even at that time, I wanted to be a part of that group. I wanted to do what those guys did, and so it became me offering to do whatever I could do. As those opportunities came forward. Like I said, Steve Berseth, he was, and really unfortunate we lost him here this last fall, but he's a pioneer for South Dakota involvement at the national level. He was really involved in the legal courses, and anybody that's taken a legal course with Steve Berseth that'll make you walk out of that class thinking like I'm in trouble. Like I'm gonna get what am I, you go back and you start trying to tighten some things up real quick. He'd scare it right out of you. But and then Jim Dorman, yeah, he's the incredible thing with him, I think, is the fact that he's survived cancer 3 times. And I just told him here a couple weeks ago at State Track that I don't know if he's more tough or more tough-headed. He's pretty stubborn, and both of them have served him really well. And I was fortunate enough he was the NEDC liaison when I was on the board, my first year. So getting the opportunity to serve on the NIAAA board with him on that as well was really unique, and something I cherish every opportunity I get to experience with him. So yeah, and all those guys are great representations of South Dakota, and we're all proud of our state. We're not necessarily large in numbers, and some of our involvement on the national level isn't as high as maybe we would like in some other states, but those people that are involved are certainly a great representation of South Dakota, and we're all really proud of them.
Thank you. Let me ask you to share your observations about last year's conference in Austin, and what a great conference that was. It was so good that they decided to build a new convention center after our conference completed. Go ahead.
I mean, to really understand how great our conference is, you have to experience it. I think, you hear going to it that it's how great of an opportunity and experience it's going to be, and it certainly is all of that. So it's been interesting, I think, here on my side, seeing some the back end of some different schedule things that we've done, and trying to find some things that work and what doesn't work. And you don't know until you try something. I think we've learned a couple things here and there, and some things we'll keep and some things we'll maybe revert back to. But the interesting thing with the last conference with the Cognia accreditation team, being there and doing site visits and those type of things. And these are people that work with all kinds of organizations and have been to all these different conferences. And the feedback that we got of the quality of conferences was really, really great to hear. Something that we all understand and can certainly appreciate. But one of the quotes was that of all the conferences that they've ever been to, this was the best conference that they've ever seen. So pretty high praise from people that have been doing it for a long time and have seen a lot of different versions of conferences, and to be able to see how great ours was and to hear that feedback was really cool.
Cory, what's a favorite part of your job?
Yeah, I love all the planning and the organization, everything that kind of goes on, behind the scenes to provide, opportunities for our kids, for our coaches, for our community. And then when you see those experiences kind of happening in real time, certainly the kids, that's really gratifying to see all your work that nobody really sees or very few see and really truly understand. To see those kind of play out. It's really evident. It's really grand when it comes to a state championship experience, a state tournament experience, those things. But it's on display in everyday competitions, practices, those kind of things. So I kind of feel like the proud dad moments when you just kind of stand back and watch things happen and watch kids get to experience these things with their friends, with their family, with their community. Really, really gratifying and fun to see.
Good answer. Let me ask you, well, let's finish up with a couple of questions. The first being what I always ask the guests on my program. You've got two suggestions for a brand new athletic administrator, and they've got to follow Cory's suggestions in order to become successful. What would your two suggestions be?
Yeah, I mean, the first one I think would be, find ways, develop systems to be organized, whatever that looks like, to you. And that's certainly going to look different for what I think is organized and what the next person might. But part of that has to be a component to delegate. And we've got limited resources like most of us do, but we've all got people around us that are here to help and want to help. Whether that's finding your out of season coaches to cover an event for you so you can have a night off, or just finding ways to find those people that are there to support you. We got to find ways to make these jobs sustainable. You hear all the time about the average lifespan of an AD is 3.2 years is the last number that I've heard. Can't imagine that that's gone any further than that. That's probably an accurate number if it's not too high. But in order for these to be sustainable, we have to find ways to delegate and make that impossible task of a work-life balance better. So we can be there to continue doing the job. And then it'd be finding mentors and identifying your resources and building your network. The AD job is pretty lonely, or it can be lonely. Nobody in your school, nobody in your district truly understands what you're going through. Even the most well-intended principal, superintendent doesn't really know what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So really critical to build that support system around you to be able to lean on. Sometimes it's when you need help with something task related and event related, whatever it is, but also someone there just to be there to support you and help you. And sometimes that's event session, when you just need to get somebody to understand what you're going through and be able to kind of commiserate with you a little bit. I have a few of those people that I can call up and we can vent to each other, and then we can be done and move forward and kind of pull each other up out of those holes that we sometimes find our way into. So find ways to get organized that involve delegation and build your support network.
Great suggestions. Thanks for sharing. We'll finish with this. Cory, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Oh, geez, I don't know. You didn't ask me my golf handicap or all my list of my golf handicap's got to be higher than yours. I'm sure that I see all your work, your golf office pictures. So, oh, I don't know. That's you covered a lot. It's great topics and enjoy your episodes. Always follow what you're doing and enjoy it. And was happy to be a part of this.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. That wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Cory Aadland, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the Athletic and Activities Director at the Mitchell School District in South Dakota. Cory, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
You bet. Sounds great. Thanks, Hutch.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.